Welcome to everybody, and for those people that are new to my channel, welcome to you as well. Because this is the Tony Tonkin Show, the podcast where we just don't talk about, well, no, we do just talk about politics. We discuss it, we scrutinise it, and we try to understand the forces shaping our world. So I'm your host, Tony Tonkin, and today we're embarking on a fascinating journey. So I hope you enjoy this trip with us. We're going to be talking about a major media player, Sky News Australia, one whom I've spoken about on many, many occasions. And we've got to admit that when I talk about Sky, it's often controversial. And in this case, it's controversial because we're talking about and we're framing it as the Trump administration. As for many of you know, I love to deep dive into media narratives and have conversations about them with you. And it's crucial for us as informed citizens to understand not just what is being reported, but how it's being reported. And crucially, why it's being reported the way that it is. Sky News Australia, particularly its evening block, often referred to as you well know, Sky After Dark, has drawn significant comparisons to right-leaning, opinion-heavy outlets like Fox News in the United States. So today we're going to pull back the curtain and ask, how does this influence their portrayal of Donald Trump, his policies, and the entire political movement he represents? And what does that mean for you, the global consumer of news? The Australian consumer of news. What does that mean directly to you? To truly understand Sky News Australia's approach to Trump, we first need to understand the channel itself. Now, this doesn't necessarily take a really big, deep dive, but we're going to do it anyway. Because historically, Sky News began as a more traditional, balanced news outlet. However, over the past decade, especially since its operation came firmly under the umbrella of News Corp Australia, part of Rupert Murdoch's global media empire, we've seen a dramatic shift in the way that they choose to produce and present the news. This shift has been a deliberate pivot, moving away from a primary neutral daytime news service towards a platform heavily dominated by conservative opinion, commentary, and often fierce political advocacy in its prime-time slots. This transformation hasn't gone unnoticed. Critics, both in Australia and internationally, argue that the channel has become a direct analogue to Fox News in the US, cultivating a similar stable of commentators and adopting a similar editorial posture. So we need to ask, why does this matter for Trump? Because this is the fertile ground where their narrative on the Trump administration grows. The bias here isn't subtle, it's often overt. It's not just about what events they choose to cover from the Trump era, but how those events are spun, who they invite to comment, and what perspective is consistently amplified. The result is often a highly favourable, almost reverential narrative for Donald Trump, his decisions, and his America First agenda. And anybody who watches it, as I do, knows. But we need to note that this isn't journalism seeking objective truth. It's often advocacy wearing the cloak of news. So let's break down this pro-Trump framing manifests on Sky News Australia. Firstly, you'll consistently find segments that are quick to praise Trump's perceived achievements, whether it's his economic policies, often credited with booming markets pre-COVID in particular, his approach to foreign relations, or his aggressive stance on trade. Sky News commentators often present these through a lens of undeniable success. Any criticisms are usually downplayed or attributed to partisan attacks. Secondly, and perhaps more controversially, The channel has faced significant scrutiny for venturing into territory often associated with the far right in the US, global conspiracy theories, for example. Topics like the Great Reset, a conspiracy theory alleging a global elite plot to dismantle capitalism and individual liberties, have found airtime on Sky News. These narratives, while seemingly disparate, often intertwine with the defence of Trump's America First populism, positioning him as a bulwark against these perceived globalist threats. This strategy isn't just about ratings. It appears to be highly effective in expanding their digital reach, particularly on platforms like YouTube, where such content thrives among specific audiences. They present Trump not just as a politician, but often as a strong leader, a disruptor, someone fighting against a corrupt establishment. This aligns perfectly with the populist movements we've seen globally, and Sky News Australia has become a significant amplifier for this perspective in the Asia-Pacific region. So let's move beyond general observations and look at some concrete examples that illustrate this incredibly profound bias. One clear illustration is Sky News' aggressive import of US-style culture war issues directly into Australian political discourse. Remember how Trump often leveraged debates on identity, gender and social issues? Well, Sky News Australia has followed suit. For instance, questions about how many genders the government should recognise.
Commissioner Anna Cody claims she has been targeted by conservative media outlets like Sky News and the Australian newspaper for her views on gender.
In case you're unfamiliar with the Commissioner's views on gender, last month she told a Senate committee that she didn't understand the term biological man. Oh dear. And now she's complaining that her comments were taken out of context and that the criticism of her is being driven by an anti-women agenda. According to the Saturday paper, Cody says there has always been a pushback against women asserting their rights and freedom, but she says the re-election of Donald Trump as President of the United States has emboldened anti-women views and unleashed a concerted anti-trans movement. Oh, right. Is that because Donald Trump actually knows a difference, James, between a man and a woman?
Parallel to debates frequently stoked by the Trump administration in the US, where these reports were reportedly amplified by Sky News reporters, with some internal accounts suggesting a directive came from the big boss himself, mirroring the top-down pressure seen in US conservative media. This isn't just reporting on a story. It's an active effort to align the local political agenda with Trump's social conservatism. Another example is their coverage of Trump's diplomatic moments. Sky News often sensationalised moments seen as diplomatic wins for Trump, portraying him as a master negotiator. What a load of crap that is. Whether it was peace agreements in the Middle East or even the release of hostages, commentators would often grant him enormous credit. The context of these events, the role of other actors and other underlying complexities were often minimised to magnify Trump's singular role and his everlasting and beautiful brilliance. Conversely, consider how they treated critics of Trump when Australian public figures, even someone as significant as the Australian ambassador to the US, often criticisms of Trump. Sky News would frequently focus on these critics being publicly rebuffed, humiliated, or forced to kowtow and apologise, as I've reported on this recently. The narrative consistently reinforces the idea that any opposition to Trump is either illegitimate, misguided, or will inevitably be met with defeat, thus discouraging dissent. It creates an echo chamber where only pro-Trump sentiment is validated. So, what does all of this mean? Discerning the agenda in a globalised media landscape is important. And this matters And it should matter to you, hopefully, those people that watch the Tony Tompkins Show. Whether you're in some other country, Dublin or Darwin, it matters. Because in our hyper-connected world, media narratives don't respect national borders. What happens on Sky News Australia can influence perceptions of American politics globally, and it certainly shapes the political discourse within a key US ally, namely Australia. The bias of Sky News Australia towards the Trump administration isn't accidental. It appears to be a deliberate, strategic editorial choice. It's designed to cultivate and engage a specific audience, one that is receptive to a right-wing, populist, anti-establishment and culture war-focused narrative. They are following the successful Fox Newsization. That is an incredible playbook, effectively blending traditional news reporting with aggressive, opinionated commentary that is fundamentally pro-Trump, by extension, often highly critical of his political opponents, particularly Democrats. As discerning consumers of news, it is absolutely paramount that we recognise and understand these editorial positions. When you encounter content from outlets like Sky News Australia covering US politics, especially the Trump administration, it's crucial to filter it through this understanding. Is it news? Or is it opinion crafted to reinforce a specific ideology? Separating fact from favourable opinion is an increasingly vital skill. We must always question the source, understand its agenda, and seek out diverse perspectives to form our own informed opinions. Look, thanks for being with me today. This is an important post, and one I think that hopefully you will share with others. So that's all the time I have for right now into this deep dive into the media bias. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned, stay informed, and keep seeking the truth beyond the headlines.